And we're back, and we're doing mouths. So I've got a new subject here because all Veronica's pictures are rubbish. I've got Sakar for my lip section, and I've got some nice shots of here. So as we're going over in class, we should have the first landmark already in there from our general sculpting. And that's that big mass of the muzzle, that big mass, the peanut, which wraps around the teeth. That's what's going to give us the mass. Now, what I will say is, don't worry about making it too. As long as it's not overly big, don't worry about making it too big at first. It's always easier to push back in the surface rather than pulling out of the surface. When it comes to lips, I find anyway. I'm terrible at sculpting lips off a surface. I'm better at sculpting lips into a surface. But what we've got here is our reference, and so the three things we were looking at were obviously the muzzle, and then if you just imagine, superimpose in your mind a cylinder which wraps around the entire, like a barrel which wraps around the entire area of the mouth here, giving us that barrel shape. That obviously tapers in at the top and at the bottom because they get smaller, and the main width is around the mouth here. But the other one is remembering that we've got like three balls in the lips. We've got one ball in the middle there, at the top lip, that pushes down just below the cupid's bow, like a ball that's depressing down there into the lip. And then we've got those two balls at either side of the lip here and here. This is going to be a feature on, very prominent feature on some lips, and not a very prominent feature on other lips. But generally, if we think about this, it's going to be easier for us. So we have those two sections there. So the ball on the upper part of the lip there, and then the ball on the lower part of the lip either side. And then on top of that, we've obviously got the cylinder at the top, which is pushing out our main muzzle. And then we've got the ball of the chin. And then those two cylinders, which are just pushing out the mass of the lower part of the mouth here. Really, really important. Obviously, I would have been showing you that in class, and I would have showed you that in the additional video that backs this up. You can kind of see there, that middle ball there, and kind of them two balls in the lower lip. But when we jump into sculpting, this is much easier than doing the eyes, I think. Make that a bit bigger for myself. So this is on my other monitor. This Pure F. So I'm just going to make that a bit smaller. Put it down here. Like that. Now, like I just said, this is big on my other monitor, so I can clearly see what's going on, but you can see what I'm looking at down here. So the sculpting of the lips, like I said, is relatively easy. You just got to pay attention to a lot of stuff. And number one, it's the muzzle. So I'm going to look here. Have I got enough mass here? Now, I don't think I've got enough mass. I'm looking at my reference here, and I'm looking at the anatomy. I'm looking at the chin. I think, okay, I could probably add a bit more. This is more like Laura. If you looked at Laura's reference, this is much more like Laura. Very, very thin. But I want to have just a little bit more, so I'm just going to sculpt in a bit more of that information. Cool, I'm happy with that. Awesome. So I've looked from the bottom, so I've looked from the top. Again, I'm always looking at these different angles because I don't want to have just it looking good from the front and then it looks terrible from the back or whatever. Cool. Awesome. And then I'm going to think about a measurement. So okay, so from my lower part of my nose to my bottom of my chin, my lip seam is going to be somewhere around the middle there. So I'm going to aim for somewhere around there. Now I can do actually masking off and drawing on like this will give you an example, or even if you draw on lips, in general. So if my lips are going to be right here. Let's have a look at that. Does that look too far up, too low down? Have I got too much space here for my filter? Have I got too much space here for my chin? So I can do that kind of thing. It also might help you plot out, where things are going to go on the surface. But I'm just going to go in, jump straight in. So I'm going to get my damn standard. I think I need a bit more resolution. Yep. Not that much. Here we go. How much is that cutting in? Cool. So I'm going to find out where about the middle of my eyeball, draw that down to about there. Okay. And then from there, that's a node, the nodule of my mouth. I'm just going to pull that into the middle. So you can already see there, a lot of the work's already been done. The seam of the mouth has been put in there. It looks about right. Again, I'm looking at my references. I've got to really pay attention to this front image because she's looking up, so that's going to distort my look a little bit. But from the side and the 3/4 on the side, I can get a good idea about, if I just ignore the lip there, the distance from the lower part of the nose to the seam, from the seam to the, I'm going to call it the middle of the chin about here. I'm getting a good idea. And again, I'm not going for likeness. I'm just using these as a landmark essentially. I'm using these as a good guide. Cool. That's looking good. The mouth length, mouth width seems okay. That's looking good. Awesome. So now it's just about getting in that information. And it's very important that, again, we think about the dominant and the subdominant shapes. So Sakar's a really good example of a dominant and subdominant, because you can clearly see how that upper lip is very dominant of that lower lip. It's literally encompassing that part of the mouth there. Now, this isn't going to be the same for everyone, but if you really look at the corners of people's mouths, if you really look at the profiles, you'll be able to see, you know, what's the dominant lip, what the subdominant lip is. And I would always say sculpt the subdominant lip first, just like the eyes. You know, we deal with the subdominant eyelid first, and then sculpt the dominant lip, because the dominant lip you're going to be wrapping on top of, you're going to be pulling that information on top of the subdominant lip. So with this, I'm seeing that the dominant lip is the upper lip. I'm having a look at the actual shape, so I'm having a look at how concave this area is. It's not very concave, it's just got a little bit of a swoop at the bottom. I'm having a look at a lower lip. She's not got a massive lower lip, but I'm also looking at the angles. So we're talking about, you know, if you were to planar off these surfaces, in what direction or in what angle do these kind of face? So I'm thinking about all those things. Okay, so my lower lip and my subdominant lip. Let's do a quick Dynamesh there, and let's just mask off that lower lip. Like that. And then in this case, I'm just going to use the move tool. And I'll also be using some of the Aki curve on this one as well. So I'm just going to just use the move tool a little bit. I just want to get some of that shape in there. Now I want you to look at the curves as well, because male and female, or masculine and feminine lips tend to have different kind of shapes on the lower lip. More feminine lips look a lot more rounder on the lower lip. More dominant lips look a lot more flatter on the lower lip. So I'm also looking at that kind of information. As I'm moving it up and down and around, I'm looking for the top and the bottom. Does it look okay? Okay, it looks like it goes in more in the corner of the mouth there, so I'm going to push that up a little bit. And then maybe hit that with a bit of clay build-up for now. Now she doesn't look like she's got a massively prominent arc at the lower lip, so there's no like super intense concave shape on the lower lip area there. It pretty much just ends the lower lip and then goes straight down to the chin, so I'm going to replicate that as well. If I look from the side, so yeah, I got to flatten that bit off a little bit. But then we're going to have those little cylindrical sections in the corner here. Not too much as well. Just going to kind of shape them in a little bit. Because remember as well, we want to have the roll off in the corner of the mouth around here. We don't want any sharp lines. Again, ignore the pink. Ignore the tone of the lips. Just look at the shape of the lips. And the shape of the lips gets softer on the outside and sharper in the middle. So I'm going to flip the lips. I'm going to work on the upper lips. So, okay. So I definitely need to angle that upper lip a bit more. Okay, so let's go. So I'm going to move to, I'm going to turn on the Aki curve. I'm going to start to just pull up the Cupid's bow, and I'm going to turn that off. And start shaping that. Okay, so it's not a super curvy lip. A little bit more like that. Let's have a look from the top. How does that look? It looks okay. That looks okay. And see, because I've been stretching the information here, see what information I can get out with the sculpting brush for that upper lip section there. Not a whole lot. I'm going to leave that for now. Okay. Let's push in that flash a bit more. Oop. So it's Dynamesh. So every time you Dynamesh, you're going to lose a little bit of information. That's why I'm not worrying too much about getting absolute information. Because like you saw then, like the crease that I did have gets lost. But now that I've dynameshed, I can just put that in a little bit. Like that. And then I can sculpt out a little bit more of that information. So get that ball of the upper lips. Let's add a bit more roundness to the upper lip in general. I don't want to have it super round because hers aren't super round. Like I said, there's obviously is a little bit of curve, but we've got more of that swoop there that I'm kind of thinking of. Looking okay, that's looking good. So sculpting a little bit of that low, that dominant outside lip there. I'm liking that. Okay, that's nice. Okay, that's looking like some good lips there. Now I'm going to do is just come in there with the damn standard and just start to go a little, again, really low resolution for this. I don't need a lot of intensity. I'm just going to start to pull in some of that information around the top of the lip. In fact, I might be able to do that with a trim dynamic, in fact. So now that I've got those lips in there, this is where I have to be careful. Just like with the eyelids, I've got some information in, so the last thing I want to do is start to attack it with a brush that's going to lose that information. So what I want to do is just be careful with this. Now that what I'm doing here, I just want to be careful. Gradually take information away. That's nice, that's nice. Now the more you look at this, the more you observe people, the more you study, the more you'll kind of see the shapes that at this point you're probably not seeing. So where there is more of a mass, so this here doesn't necessarily sweep in as a concave shape. There is going to be a little bit of convex shape coming out, and then it comes into a concave shape. So I am always thinking about that. But again, this is stuff that you will see as time goes on. Okay, there we go. Filtrum. Don't forget the filtrum. And again, the filtrum is something I'd push in, not necessarily pull out, because it goes into the flesh. It doesn't come out of the flesh. Now this resolution as well, we can only achieve so much detail. So, and also because of this resolution, we're also going to get a little bits of visual artifacting. We're going to get sharp little shapes appearing, or kind of quite harsh shadows that we might not be able to get rid of because of the resolution. So sometimes you've just got to deal with it. Okay, so I'm just softly dealing with some of this information here, softening it out a little bit. Again, I'm not using that smooth tool, I'm just using my actual tool, my clay build-up brush, just to smooth some of that off. Awesome, so it's looking alright now, I'm looking quite happy with that. Just a couple of things I need to do. One of them is work on that node, and the actual node, as you can see here. Quite here. So you can see this little highlight area here. This is the area where loads of muscles of the face kind of converge and create this little node right here. It's literally called the node. So I'm going to sculpt that in. That's going to help me add a little bit more kind of mass to the face around here. Stops it looking very flat and tight. Like here looks very flat and tight. Doesn't look very kind of thick or you know, plump or anything like that. And the other thing is the lower part of the lip as well. I want to just add a bit more information, tiny bit of information, crease information. But like we talked about in class, I want to avoid the that crying face look. You know, if you add a bit more, too much kind of crease down here, it can sometimes make your subject look like they're about to cry. So I don't want to do that. Cool, so let's bring in that node. So I'm going to get my damn standard. I'm just going to start to slice in a line. So the line I'm looking to add in is a line just about there. You can kind of see where you got this highlight here and it transitions into shadow here. I'm going to put that line there. Again, when you watch my videos, which I know you're all doing, you'll see me do this a lot as well. So I'm going to add that in. I'll add it in, then kind of push it back later on to control it, but I'll add that back in there. And then with the clay build up, I'll just start to add that mass And this goes all the way around as well. It goes all the way around here. It doesn't just end like here. This kind of goes all the way around. Okay. There we go. Again, this helps add that little bit of mass around the mouth. Yeah. Yeah, just like that. Now I'm going to deal with the resolution here. I want to push it in deeper like we've got there, but I've not necessarily got the resolution to shape it in with what I've got with this damn standard. But I can use the move brush with that Aki curve on. I can just grab relatively big. I can just grab the corner of the mouth there and pull it in a little bit. Not too much though. Like that's maybe a touch too far. Just like that. Yeah, just like that. Then come back there with a clay build up and just soften some of that off. Yeah, just like that. Cool. Let's make sure I turn that off so I don't forget. And the last things for now is I'm just going to kind of crease that lower section there a touch. Just a touch though, not too much. So I'm just using the damn standard just to slightly sharpen this area. Oh, you can't see it because of reference. Slightly sharpen this area here. Just a touch, not too much. I do not want to do anything like this. Because then that'll give your character like a weird chin. So now that I've added that, I can always just go around and start changing stuff. So is my mouth the right width? Well, now that I've started doing stuff, maybe not. So I'll slightly drag it out. You know, is my jaw looking okay? Now that I've got that in there, does my jaw look too wide, too thin? Let's start just slowly touching that up a little bit. My forehead looks massive there. So maybe I can start putting that there. So it's never really too late to make changes. I've just got to always be looking at my head and observing. It's easy to get lost in the early stages of sculpting. It's easy to get lost in the details. You just got to stop and ask yourself questions all the time. Okay. Now, obviously, we're looking a little bit choppy in the face there because obviously there's a lot of sculpting noise been left behind, you know, and we're working at a low resolution, so some of those what are nice sharp lines in real life end up looking like a little bit jaggedy. But really, if I go in there and just do a little bit of smoothing, I'm talking like just nice controlled smoothing, we're in a really good position. There we go. So what I'm doing here is just doing controlled smoothing. I'm only doing certain areas and just touching the areas as well, not really scrubbing. Just touching the areas, smoothing off a little bit. There we go. And this is, what, 200k? This whole face so far is 200k. And we're at a point now where we're getting close to the next stage. You're not quite there yet, but we're getting close to the next stage. What I'll be doing here is just, again, going through, doing another passive refinement, make sure all my shapes are correct. I'd obviously be working on my ears, touching up my nose, any major wrinkles I'll be getting in there. Getting in some feedback, not necessarily detailing feedback, but we're getting some structural feedback. So can anyone look at this and see some structural issues? Does my anatomy look okay? Have I got the correct Um, Muscle definition, I've got the right fat deposits. Does it look like a person of this age? Is it too masculine, too feminine? You know, if I am doing a likeness, I'd be asking for a lot of details on features and that kind of jazz. But again, we're not doing likenesses yet. But you can see, I mean, when you step back, there, it looks really, really nice. I think. You don't really see the crunchiness of the mesh, but it's only when you get closer to it you can see how low res that is. That is some real low res. When you step back with no iframe, it's perfectly fine. So yeah, I'll be working on the mesh a lot more. I might be going up a couple of resolution jumps from here. Maybe I might go up as far as like 600, possibly, depending on how far I want to go with the detailing. But that's what I want to do. So we've done eyes and we've done mouths. Then we're looking at ears and noses in kind of one big group because they're smaller. Well, they are just as important as anything else, but not quite as complex. Some of the shapes in the ear are complex, but only really when it comes to retopologizing. The nose is really, really simple. It's just a lot of taking care about the shape. You know, make sure again we're observing our subject and looking from all these different angles. Because from the side, it's easier to get the nose looking okay from the side, but the front is a bit harder because of multiple different reasons. You know, the shape of the nasolabial fold, the shape of the nostrils, the shape of all sorts of jazz. You know, things that as newbies to this we don't necessarily see. But as you can see, really easy to achieve with just a few things you really need to think about from going over everything. So effectively we've got a finished head, quote unquote finished head at this point. So I've gone up to 280, so I don't want anyone to go above 280 if they need to. But number one, skull. Your skull is the most important part of this. So don't move on until your skull looks okay. And I'm not talking about a skull as in, you know, recesses and bone structures and the cavities where we actually have a skull. I'm talking about the landmark. So, you know, can we see where the cranium is? Is the cranium got the right shape from up top, from below, from the behind? You know, if we were looking from the top, does it look too square? Do you have that natural egg shape? Is the temporal ridge at the front here, is that thinner than the back of the cranium? Remember, we want that egg shape in there. Thinner at the back. Oh, sorry, thinner at the front. Oh, my head's very square at the back there. Is it too square at the back? That's far, far too square at the back. So I would actually need to go in there and sort that out. So I need to do that. Is our measurements correct? So if we're thinking about our thirds, top third the forehead, bottom third the eyes and the nose, lower third the mouth and chin, are all those in position? These are all relatively even distances between each other. Yes, if you're looking at some subjects like Adrian, what's his face, that someone doing in class, he has a massive central middle third. Toby Jones has a massive upper third. That's fine, but because we're just starting off, we want to think of everything as like equal distances. Make standard faces first, then we'll make them interesting later on. Is your jawline okay? Is your neck in the right position? So does your neck come out in the right position? Does it connect to the body correctly? Does the front of the neck come through essentially the middle of that jawline? So you see how that neck comes through the middle of the jawline there? In that position, does it look like it joins to the back of the head? Right here, have you got an occipital lobe? Remember, your neck joins in the middle of the bottom of the head, not at the back of the head. There's too many people sculpting necks that look like they're joining from the back of the head. They join in the middle of the head. Are your ears in the right position? Are they the right size, the right angle? Again, I've seen too many people with their ears too far back, too far forward. They're in the center of the head, behind that center line. And then after that, it's about, you know, adding that mass, getting the eyes in there, getting the mouth in there, getting the right shapes, you know, slowly going through. I keep saying, you know, give yourself a 20-minute, you know, time limit for all these, or a half an hour time limit, 45-minute time limit, whatever. A time limit doesn't necessarily mean you have to rush to the end point. It just means that's the amount of time you've got until you start kind of losing momentum. You know, do a sculpture over an hour, but do it in 20-minute jumps. So do an hour-long sculpt in 20-minute chunks. 20 minutes, 5-minute break. 20 minutes, 5-minute break. 20 minutes, 5-minute break. You know, because if you just keep going through and try and do the entire thing in 20 minutes, or you just work the entire like 4 hours, you're probably not going to maintain focus. So you're probably going to get lost in detail after, you're going to be spending ages on one bit and lose time on somewhere else. And please, please, please just watch the videos I've already put up, of the sculpting videos I've put up, of these videos, because they're incredibly important. It's not just a vanity project for me. It's about me showing you how I've sculpted stuff and the process of. I'm showing you that it's not necessarily just done in ZBrush. It can be done in any software, but all the steps are exactly the same.